Good morning. Welcome to Cheyenne's Forum. Today is Wednesday and August 14. Right now, the time is Pacific time, 9:08 a.m. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Fine. How are you?
So nice to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah, how's your recovering? Recovering.
Coming.
Much better. Okay,
Bandages are off, and now skin has to
you
heal
look
now.
better.
So I can
You
take the bandages off and let the air help the skin heal.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, welcome to Cheyenne's Forum. Tom is my dear friend, and he worked in FBA for almost 30 years, and he served as assistant director of FBA for 5 years, and he's retired now. And thank you so much, Tom, to come to our broadcast today.
You're
And we
welcome.
have
Thank you.
Sure. We have so many questions for you today. First, let's start with the interview, the big, great interview between Musk and Trump. First, do you see the interview? Do you watch the interview? What do you
Yes.
feel about the interview?
I thought it was basically, most of the things Trump said, he says at every one of his rallies. So
Mm-hmm,
if you watch his rallies, these are the topics he talks about. And although he doesn't often talk about AI at the rallies, but because that's a big issue for Trump,
mm-hmm,
um, some of the innovation things. And I think Trump also, he talked earlier about being pretty negative on electric cars. And I think that now that he has Elon Musk backing endorsement, he's
mm-hmm,
more or less gone to a position of pick what car you want. He's going against the Biden administration, or maybe the Harris administration, whichever one you want to call it.
mm-hmm,
He's going against their proclamation that by 2030 you need to have an electric car.
mm-hmm,
And Trump has pointed out some of the limitations of it and saying that it's low range, basically. If you can get 200 or 300 miles, but you
mm-hmm,
need to go cross country, then
mm-hmm,
you have to stop, every 2 hours or something and put the car on the charger. It's not like stopping in a gas station and refueling, which
mm-hmm,
can take 5, 10 minutes maybe.
mm-hmm,
This could take, assuming you can find the charger pumps, it
mm-hmm,
could take an hour or more. And
mm-hmm,
if you have to like my family, much of my family's in Chicago, and
mm-hmm,
we drive frequently from Washington to Chicago,
mm-hmm,
and we can do it on maybe two gasoline fill ups. We can get there in about 12 hours. But if we had to stop an hour a stop and get gasoline, we're not going to be able to do it in one day like we do now because
mm-hmm,
it's going to be 15, 16 hours as opposed to 11 or 12.
mm-hmm.
So I think that, but that's fine. If you just want a car
Mm-hmm.
for in town, you have the charging station in your home,
Mm-hmm.
which a lot of people in apartments is going to be difficult. But if you own a home and you have a single family house, you can
Mm-hmm.
put the charger unit, cost
Mm-hmm.
maybe, I don't know, $1 or $2,000, but you can put the charging unit in your home
Mm-hmm.
and then drive during the day if you're only going 50 miles to work and 50 miles home at night, and then
Mm-hmm.
put the car on the charger. Next morning, you have a full charge.
Mm-hmm.
So that works out that way. But if you have to do a lot of cross country driving, not
Mm-hmm.
as good. So
Right, right.
not as powerful. They break down in cold weather. So this past winter, we saw where they had frigid weather in Chicago, and
Mm-hmm.
all of the electric cars were on the side of the road, stopped. They were lucky if they got to the side of the road. Some broke down on the highway. So because they don't run, the batteries don't last in really cold weather.
Mm-hmm.
Gasoline, all of that, that doesn't make much difference if you keep your car charged and
Right,
and start the engine. If you can get
right.
it, if you have enough battery charge, it's going
Right.
to operate very fine. So Trump's basically said you should be able to, as an American citizen, pick what you want.
Right.
If you want electric or if you want gasoline, I
Mm-hmm.
know people that have both. They have gasoline cars to go longer distances and cross country,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have electric cars to run around in town, go to the grocery store, or go to work if it's close by. So
Right.
I think that I think that's maybe Trump has moderated his original position, but I think
Right.
his original position wasn't so much against the electric car
Right.
as the mandate that you have to have one and that
Right.
you're no longer going to be able to have gas, whether you're in the main part of the country or California with Gavin Newsom saying, oh, you can't, no more gas cars,
Right.
electric only.
Right. That's the thing. It's pretty similar to me, the attitude or the position of Trump towards the immigration. He's not against the immigration. He's just against the illegal immigrants.
Right,
He's not against the electric car. He just against to the amended electric car.
right.
So I think that's the thing. And people are saying that these interviewers are so powerful. We have so many views. I heard that it's already 1 billion views.
Yeah.
So this is a huge. So people just said, why don't Trump just stop to do that rally? It's dangerous, right, for him, and the reach out is limited compared to the
Because
access.
the reason for the rallies, like the
Uh-huh.
one he recently did in Montana, and they
Mhm.
basically said, you're going to win Montana. It's not an issue. You don't need to campaign there. But he
Mhm.
was campaigning for
Below.
lower down ballot candidates so that
Right.
they can take the Senate, so they can take the House of Representatives.
Mhm.
And and if you watched that rally,
Mhm.
also joining Trump in Montana
Mhm.
was Johnny Jackson. Jackson had been the House, or I mean the White House physician for
Mhm.
several presidents,
Right, right.
and basically, including Trump.
Hmm.
And basically, Trump had nominated him to be Secretary of Veterans Affairs, which he would have been very good at.
Right, right.
And the senator from Montana, the Democrat, really blasted him. And according to Jackson, made untrue statements about him and his family and
Mhm.
sabotaged his appointment to be secretary. Now, with that, the good news is Jackson went back to his home in Texas, ran for Congress, and now he's a congressman. But
Mhm.
he went out of his way to go to Montana to basically say what the senator there had done to him and
Mhm.
how basically evil he is to not vote for him. And then he backed up the Republican candidate who will be running against him in November.
Mhm. Well, that's a very good point for
That's
the
the main issue for Trump are the lower level so they can take back the Senate, so they can take the House. And in those two chambers of Congress,
Mhm.
one or two or three senators winning or congressmen is all the difference.
Right,
A
right.
huge difference.
Right, 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 right. That's a good, that's very, very good point. And then so before the interview, it's a big thing because I don't know if you still remember the interview will delayed for 42 minutes because they experienced the some attack. And then in the morning, Monday morning, we see the one of the UN officer warn Musk and said, "You better be careful about what you're going to say, what you're going to put on the X. We will after you, chasing after you." So, what do you read about this situation? Is this the matter of the
What's interesting is that without the UN, and the UN is pretty impotent anyway, but Biden himself and the current administration are very anti Elon Musk. Now,
right?
the reason they give is because Musk employees are not unionized. They're not part of the UAW, United Auto Workers unions, like General Motors and Ford and the other ones.
Mhm.
So even in the middle of the Biden administration, when he was having a big summit in Washington, all of the CEOs of the companies making the most electric cars and electric trucks,
Mhm.
Elon wasn't even invited, even though he has his sales are more than any of them with
Mhm.
Tesla and the innovation that he's done. And now you've got Tesla's just released the new pickup truck. Uh, and I saw Tucker Carlson review that truck last week on his channel.
Mhm.
And the farmer in Maine that Tucker knows took him for a ride, showed him the towing power and the speed and all the advantages of that particular vehicle, and said, no, this is a great pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
So, so you basically have the administration, the current administration, extremely anti Elon Musk, anti Tesla, anti everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they insisted they wanted Boeing to take our astronauts to the space station. And then Boeing aircraft fails.
Mm-hmm.
And right now they're stranded. They were already supposed to be home. And now they're looking at, well, maybe Elon, SpaceX can rescue them.
Mm-hmm.
But again, they've been, the NASA, because of the political pressure from White House, has been trying to get Boeing promoted to go to take them back and forth. And
Mm-hmm.
for years, starting in the Obama administration, we had, when we had spaceships basically not able to go into space, we were taking our astronauts to and from the International Space Station by
Mm-hmm.
Russian aircraft. The Russian spaceships were taking them.
Right.
So now they're trying to avoid Russia because that would be politically incorrect. We hate Russia. We want to depose Putin. We want to conquer the Russian people.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, we need an American company that uses unions. Why not Boeing? And forget about SpaceX and all that. And here's Elon Musk saying he's got the aircraft now,
Mm-hmm.
preparing for trips to Mars,
Mm-hmm.
to colonize Mars. And he's looking at, you know, who do you want now? You want Tesla or you want not Tesla, SpaceX.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's the problem with the Biden administration is they say, oh, we're for technology, we're for innovation, but only if it politically suits them.
Right. Right.
Otherwise, forget about it. We're going to sabotage it. We're going to call Elon Musk bad name. And now that Elon Musk has endorsed Trump, full
Right.
endorsement, and Trump basically gives a full endorsement to Tesla,
Mm-hmm.
saying, get an electric car if you want, get a gas car, get what you want. So the
Mm-hmm.
ban, and he's already talking among the things he's going to do as soon as he's in office
Mm-hmm.
is eliminate the ban on gas powered cars and mandates for electric only. So, that's why when they were advertising that this was going to be, a very controversial interview,
Mm-hmm.
well, if you've been watching Trump rallies, wasn't that controversial? It's pretty much everything he's talked about and a lot of what Elon Musk has talked about. So I think that that's why everybody, uh, was curious about what was going to be said and how they were going to say it, and that's why they've got all these, hundreds of millions of viewers watching this worldwide.
Right. So my question is, I understand that Biden administration is very against Musk, and then this is the issue within the U.S. soil. But why UN are so excited to warn Musk against what Musk for the X platform?
Well, I'm sure the UN, you have countries and individuals that if they don't get money from the US, they're going to go out of business. And the UN is highly impotent all these years. What have they really done? What have they really accomplished?
Right.
And therefore, if the Biden administration gets one or two of them to step up and say, "Oh, Elon Musk is no good," or because they don't like free speech, they want the World Economic Forum and the other globalists, which the
Right.
UN is highly globalist, want
Uh-huh.
to shut people up that don't agree with their party line. So
Right.
so in
So,
a way, for Elon Musk to be criticized by the UN,
mhm.
a lot of Americans don't care for the UN in the first
Right.
place. They don't see what good they've done. All
Right.
they know is, like many of the international programs, it's the United States that funds it. You know,
Right.
we have the UN facility housed in New York City,
Mhm.
and so much of the support of the UN comes
Right.
from the United States, just like so much support of NATO and the European Union comes from the United States. So I
Mhm.
think that that's fine. Let the UN criticize Musk.
Mhm.
Um, you know, Go ahead and get Boeing to send their aircraft into space when they
Mhm.
have airplanes flying across the country with doors falling off and nuts and bolts falling out and all of this. And Elon Musk gets back and he's got all of this new technology in his rockets.
Hmm.
And, he can kind of sit back and laugh at the other companies that can't match them.
Right. So it's really doesn't matter about what UN said to Musk.
No,
And
I don't think.
that's I agree with you. And then
Who would pay attention to it? Who cares?
right, and also the British police chief. I think 3 days ago he said that if people put on some misinformation on the social media, even though you are not in the England, the soil of England, we can go after you. It sounds a little crazy. It's like the UN.
Well, yeah, the United Kingdom is so Marxist now that
Right,
that's the kind of stuff they come up with,
right.
and let's see them enforce it. Let's see them come after people in the United States because they were critical of the UK when they're having riots and can't keep their own people
Hmm.
supporting the government, supporting their policies. It's a
Hmm.
Marxist country, and it's
Right.
been on that path for a long time. And so what can they do? And besides that, the UK is so weak when they talk about
Hmm.
supporting NATO and going after Russia and supporting the Ukraine and all of that.
Hmm.
With what? They
Hmm.
they have basically decimated their own military. They don't
Hmm.
have the capability financially, militarily, or culturally to go after anybody
Hmm.
outside of London, let's say.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We hear all of these threats and all of this stuff
Right.
on the internet,
Hmm.
and okay, what are they going to do? I think they're mainly bluffing and threatening people with no ability to enforce it.
Mm-mm. It's just all verbal. It's
Yeah,
not action after the language.
yeah,
So yeah, people just saying right now England is just like 1984. They actually create the 1984 novel, but right now they are in the 1984
yeah.
period of time. So and also we are watching the Kamala Harris and his pickup of VP. Kamala Harris, 3 days, she said, "This is what I love about being elected, because basically you don't have to ask anybody permission." This is what she said in front of people. It's in public. So it's horrible. It sounds like a dictator. And these she just said out loud in front of people. So deep
Yet again, another Marxist.
right,
She is
exactly
a true blue Marxist,
right.
and she picks a kindred spirit in the governor of Minnesota, Waltz, who's an
Hmm.
extreme Marxist also.
Right.
So the two of them, I don't know. You've got this media honeymoon with them,
Hmm.
making them sound great and exaggerating how her
Right.
her ratings, her popularity, and all of that.
Hmm.
And I think that we're going to see that, I believe, start to become reduced, especially at some point. She's going to, if she doesn't say what her policies are, Donald Trump and the Republicans are already putting on their ads on TV and radio and internet the comments that she's made over the years, which are so Marxist. And when she talks about now, she's saying, I'm going to close the border on day one. Well, what have you been doing for almost 4 years? Leaving it wide open. Then she says, I'm not the border czar. Well, then Trump, they put up all the ads and all the newspaper headlines back 3 years ago when Biden said she's the border czar.
Hmm.
And then in the interviews where Lester Holt on NBC is asking her, have you been to the border? No, ha, ha, ha. And I've never been to Europe, ha, ha, ha. Well, that just means you're a moron.
Hmm.
So what? Congratulations. And then when she finally goes to the Texas border, she goes to a town where they don't really have a problem. She
Hmm.
doesn't want to go to the high crossing areas where she would run into Border Patrol and other uh, officials, customs officials at the border that would tell her, we can't control this. The border's so far open, so many illegals coming across. So I
Hmm.
think that all of the things that she said in the past are catching up with her. She said, no, we're going to reduce inflation right away. Well, the only way you're going to reduce inflation is by reducing energy costs, the
Mm-hmm.
cost of gasoline, diesel fuel, uh, propane, gas, all of that. And you're not going to be able to do that if you're not drilling for
Mm-hmm.
oil or
Mm-hmm.
exploring natural gas.
Right.
And so, her answer, we're gonna reduce inflation immediately. Well, unless they reverse their policy, and Trump, in his style of delivery, he says, drill, baby, drill. Day
Mm-hmm.
one, he's going to issue the executive order because it's not a congressional order or a statute that says they can't drill. It was Biden administration, on day one of Biden, he issued, I don't know, 20 or more executive orders
Mm-hmm.
and not closing the Keystone pipeline,
Mm-hmm.
and other orders that affected the production of energy in this country caused inflation. Because
Mm-hmm.
now, the farmers need diesel fuel to operate their equipment, the big tractors and combines and all of that. Then they need diesel fuel to put the products of their farms on the trucks to take it to where it's going to be processed and the food is going to be made from it in factories around the country. Then the trucks that are going to take the products from the food factories to the grocery stores have to use diesel fuel. So there's three parts of the chain, all requiring cheaper diesel fuel to get it there. And those costs have skyrocketed.
Mm-hmm.
Then when it gets to the grocery store, the average customer is going to have to get in their car and use gasoline power to get it to the grocery store to take the stuff home. Then they want to ban gas stoves in your house, so you'll use electric stoves. Well, the electric power grid isn't strong enough to sustain all electric appliances and all electric vehicles, but that doesn't matter. So what? So you have all of those kind of issues, and it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like she's I think too stupid to be
Right.
able to know how inflation happens, how it already happened in this country, how it
Mm-hmm.
continues to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, as long as she thinks she's going to come to power and we're going to put in all these policies to correct all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, dummy, they're your policies.
Right.
You can correct
Exactly.
them now, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. You
Right.
caused this in the first place.
Right.
You could cause it to be fixed and didn't, but you're going to fix it day one. How stupid can you be? Now, here's the problem. As stupid as those statements are, what percentage of the population believe it? How close
Well,
are these polls to being accurate?
Tom,
Well, I'm
this
almost looking at
exactly
it.
I
I'm
wanted.
almost getting I'm almost getting fed up with the
Right.
voters in this
Right.
country who
Right.
continue to vote for
Right.
these idiots that
Right.
hurt our country. And yet
Right.
there they are supporting them and cheering at rallies and all of that. How
Right.
ridiculous can they be?
Right, right, exactly. Tom, this is the question that I can ask you, that she can say whatever she wants, which is really stupid, doesn't make any sense. And why some people still vote for her? It is just, I don't understand because this is not theoretically thoughts. It's your daily life. You see the difference of how much you pay for your grocery, for your gasoline, and why you still believe on this administration. How these
Because
people
the,
think.
because the media covers for the Democratic Party for the
Right,
last 5, 10, 15 years. So
right.
that people, growing up and now, becoming voters are thinking, when they think of the Democratic Party, they're thinking of John F. Kennedy or maybe Lyndon Johnson or
No,
somebody like that. And
no.
and they're not thinking of what's actually going on right now with the
Mm-hmm,
Biden administration.
mm-hmm.
The Biden administration is so tyrannical,
Right,
so Marxist
right.
in so many, any policy area you look at, they're not delivering or promising anything that the American people want. Then why do the American people vote Democratic?
Right.
Is it just a
Exactly.
bad habit? Are they addicted? Like the Democratic Party is heroin? They just, oh, it's terrible, but they got to keep using it. They can't get off the drug of voting Democratic.
It's a good it's a good words to put on the Democrats. It's kind of a drug. And they some people I don't believe this is a majority, but some people just get used to it
Yeah,
and they cannot accept anything different than Democrats, which is really sad. And you're
right.
absolutely right. Right now, today's Democrats are totally different than John F. Kennedy time. It is,
John F. Kennedy's time, in those days, you had moderate Democrats, conservative Democrats. You had various degrees of how conservative they were. And so
mhm,
they argued amongst themselves. They debated amongst themselves what
right.
policies they would back up. And
Mhm,
now I've referred to it that in the last couple of years, the Democrats act like a herd of rats. No
right,
matter how stupid, no matter how bad the leadership is, they follow right along. Oh,
right.
okay. So you look at what Schumer does in the Senate, it's absurd. And
Mhm,
yet, all the other senators, you don't hear any senators saying, hey, that's ridiculous.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
So, that's basically it's the arrogance of the Democrats that are in power, and to some extent, the I don't know, the ambivalence or aloofness of the population, the voting population that think, well, I always voted Democrat, so what's wrong with that?
Yeah, that's so sad to see. And you're absolutely right. I think the media plays a huge role to push
Absolutely.
people to this direction. And then it's just like the Democrats before, they have different views and different argument among themselves. And right now you only hear one voice. So it's exactly like Soviet Union, exactly like a Communist Party. You only have one sound, one voice.
Right. And the American media has become just like Pravda in Russian, state
Mm,
media, state
right.
control. What the content is controlled. And that's why you see countries like the United Kingdom saying, we're going to control what the media says. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's Pravda. Only,
Mm-hmm.
only worse, they're going to come out of their country to other countries and come get you
Right.
if you're
Right.
issuing statements that are contradictory.
Mm-hmm.
So the only difference with that is that in the UK, they have basically gone so far downhill,
Mm-hmm.
being so socialist, really since the end of World War II, that that the World War II ended and they were already financially broke. The end of that war meant the emergence of the United States as the one sole superpower. And
Mm-hmm.
then a couple of years, 1949, the Soviet Union gets nuclear weapons. Shortly after, the People's Republic of China get nuclear weapons and go communist. The CCP takes over China in 1949. So
Mm-hmm.
now you have these other countries uh, promoting Marxism, promoting communism.
Mm-hmm.
And here in the United States, oh, we have the oceans in between us. It'll never affect us. We'll never be in jeopardy. Well, those days are over. We are in jeopardy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the result of culture Marxism.
Exactly.
They use different form to convey the American. So they're pretty success so far, we can say, right?
Yeah, and the problem is the United States and the people in this country have been so spoiled, so successful,
Mm-hmm.
and basically think that the Atlantic and Pacific Ocean protects us from China in Asia and Russia in Eastern Europe, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore we don't have anything to worry about.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to, but yeah, they could launch missiles from there and they'd take about 30 minutes to hit the United States, but they're probably not going to do that. And we're pretty safe. We're pretty safe being across the oceans from these other threats. Well, the threats are not 30 minutes away in Russia or in China in their missile silos. The threats are sitting 10 minutes off the East Coast and West Coast in nuclear powered stealth submarines.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the threat here. Russia, their submarines sitting off the coast of New York or Miami or on the West Coast, they're most of the in many of the cases they're not detected by us. We don't know where they're at.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, if they launch their missiles, those missiles will arrive in the US cities in about 8 minutes. And they can wipe out Washington, New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, Miami, and on
Mm-hmm.
the West Coast, San Diego, LA, San Francisco, Portland, Oregon, Washington, Seattle, and Washington. So those threats are real and they're minutes from US soil.
Mm-hmm.
And so people don't think of that. Well, they can't invade us. We're safe. Well, they can. They don't have to. They can just bomb you and destroy you.
And plus, we have so many millions of illegal immigrants are get into this country every single day while we're talking. There are hundreds of get into this country and our soil. And then I saw the other day the news on Qton that people three formal Homeland Security agent, they're whistleblowers right now, and they are just claim that Homeland Security intentionally don't take the DNA of the illegal immigrants, which they are asking they should do that. And they said only 70% of uh, illegal immigrants have the DNA. So
Well,
basically,
but
if
that's 70% of the immigrants that they encounter and show up in their facilities.
right,
When you
right,
have millions of gotaways, they got
right,
away. So
right,
there's no background check, there's no DNA check and all of that. The other thing, if I could add about DNA,
right.
in law enforcement, for example, if
Mm-hmm,
people, my DNA is on file,
mm-hmm,
having joined the FBI, people
mm-hmm,
joining the military. That's why we don't have any more tomb of the unknown soldiers in the tomb of the unknown soldier, because everybody joining the military has to provide their DNA. So if
mm-hmm,
they get, if a person gets blown up, the tiniest piece
mm-hmm,
identifies that person because the DNA is on file. Now, the thing about the people coming across the border, they can take their DNA at the border, but the countries they're coming from, they haven't taken their DNA and put it in the database. So we don't know them from that aspect. And then when they get in the country, if they commit another violent crime and there's DNA evidence at the crime scene, yeah, if we had their DNA, we could say, okay, that's this person that crossed the border. We don't really know their true name or what country or any of that, but we've got a DNA sample. That would be fine. If you apprehend the person whose DNA we've already taken and compare it, you could say, okay, that person committed this crime.
mm-hmm,
Even if we don't know their true name, even if we don't know what country, we know they committed whatever violent crime it might have been. Now, the gotaways, the millions that are getting into the country, aren't being, their DNA or fingerprints aren't being taken. So what are you going to compare? Now you get somebody in Philadelphia or Chicago or some other city commits a violent crime and they get DNA at the scene. What are
mm-hmm,
they going to compare it to? Now they can compare it if we have that person's DNA profile in a US database because they've already committed crimes in the US. We've already had who that person is.
mm-hmm,
But for the most part, we're not going to have that. That's
mm-hmm,
the same is true with fingerprints. How many people have had their fingerprints taken to even compare? I
mm-hmm,
have joined the FBI. My fingerprints are on file,
mm-hmm.
but are yours? For the audience, have you given your fingerprints to the government or
It,
your children if they go missing? Maybe not. And
right.
therefore, if fingerprints are found at a crime scene, they have to apprehend a suspect that they can compare the suspect's fingerprints to what was collected at the crime scene.
Right.
So many of these crime scenes, the uh, the fingerprints or the DNA are taken at the crime scene if they have it,
Mhm.
and they may not get compared to the person might not get arrested for 10 or 15 years. We see those cases now
Right, right,
where
right.
a person is now arrested and they check if the fingerprints of that person have ever been taken or the DNA samples from that person have ever been taken. And then they see it in a crime scene, the evidence of a crime scene and can match it. So we've had many convictions where the evidence was collected 10 years ago, but
Right.
it's not real efficient. And it's not going to be efficient for 20 million people coming across our border every year,
Yeah.
or since Biden took power.
Right. And just like President Trump said, he gonna start the biggest deportation the first day he get into the office because we have no choice. He estimated that we have over, just like you said, 20 million illegal immigrants already in this country. So my question is, where are they? We don't know where are they. So how can we do the deportation? We need
Well,
to
yeah, they've tried to clarify that idea or that policy
right,
by saying, okay, when someone, illegal migrant, gets arrested and connected to a crime, then they'll deport them. But just, to say we're going to deport 20 million people, not going to happen. Can deport a lot of people, but it's not going to happen. I thought it's very labor intensive, let's say, to deport somebody. So you identify somebody living in a house or apartment or luxury hotel in New York City, and you say that person's got to go. Well, now you're going to send how many law enforcement officers to grab that person?
right,
Not just one, two, three, four. Now you're going to take that person and transport them out of the country. How long is that? How many airplanes can you put all these illegals on? How many ships can you put them on? So the idea of deporting everybody, great idea. I just think it's going to be nearly impossible logistically to enforce what you're saying about deport them. Yeah, when they're apprehended committing a crime, okay. But just as a general policy to go after 20 million people, then you would need 100 million law enforcement officers to collect them and take them.
right. You're absolutely right. So that means our population has changed, forever changed.
Yeah, and the Democrats know that. That's why they want to do it.
They
That's
want
why they're
to.
doing it to destabilize the country.
So is there anything that we can do
Well,
if
well, first of all, starting as soon as possible. Well, Kamala luckily is going to close our border if she's elected. So that's good to hear. That's good to hear. What an innovation. And the few things that she's come up with, some of it she's just copying from Trump. I'm going to close the border. I'm going to stop taxing
mhm,
tips
tips?
for workers, waitresses, and taxi drivers and other people. All these things. Where'd she get that idea? And then you have that other liar in Washington, Jean-Pierre, the spokesman in the White House,
Mhm.
basically saying, oh, that wasn't Trump's idea. That was a Democratic idea in the first place. Okay, tell one lie, then tell another lie to cover it, and more lies on top of that. Now, how many stupid people in the country believe it?
It's so sad to see they are just lying to you so obviously, just in front of your eyes, they lied, and some people still believe it
Yeah,
in them. And also the media. The media are the part of the Democrats and a
yeah, they
part.
they could not get away with all of this if the media didn't back them up, protect them, hide the truth, do all of these things like Pravda in the Soviet Union in the old days.
So
Uh,
since when our media becomes so bad? Where they started?
they started in college when they were a lot of these reporters. In fact, the CIA had a program called Mockingbird. And what that was is they took in interns
Uh-huh.
and got jobs for them in the media, starting as reporters, or they had an intern program for them. Anderson Cooper at CNN went through their intern program, CIA. And then they have that contact. So then what happens is the CIA feeds them their stories, feeds them information, and makes it look like they're really great reporters. Look at what they came up with. And they have hundreds, that program started in the 50s and is still continuing. It includes reporters, uh, the producers of these news shows, directors of the news shows, higher officials all the way up the chain in the media, whether it's newspaper, radio, TV, in some cases, movies. They make movies. In
Right.
fact, supposedly one of the best movie, Animal Farm that we've talked about, the book by George Orwell depicting animals on a farm being like members of the Communist Party in the Soviet Union at the time, books that he wrote in the late 1940s in London. And so CIA produced a movie, cartoon movie, very high quality of Animal Farm. That's a CIA production. So, so they make movies, they make radio shows, they do all of these things to put out information, and reporters kind of, buy it hook, line, and sinker, just put it out. They're grateful for not having to do work to go out and find a story and find the facts and find the witnesses to interview. It gets spoon fed to them. Thank you. We'll put that out. And that's kind of what happened. So it continues to happen.
Huh. So then my next question is, so who's behind the CIA? It seems like the CIA is the playwright and he is the director for the whole thing. So who is behind CIA?
The CIA, we refer to the deep state and the things that they come up with. The CIA is behind the CIA. That's, they have people within the CIA that's their mission to
Mhm,
promote the CIA. The CIA operates radio for, the Voice of America, for example,
mhm,
promoting democracy and the American way and all of that. Well, it's just more stuff that they put out.
mhm, mhm. So you are against everything that CIA said, or everything
No,
that,
you got to they put some truth out, they
Mhm.
put some false information out.
Right,
And it's very difficult to get to the truth in the short run.
right.
Eventually, much of this comes out. For example, um, the CIA, after the Warren Commission came up with their report,
Mhm,
and the investigation by the Warren Commission was controlled by the CIA director that President Kennedy fired, Alan Dulles. So
mhm,
he's the lead investigator on behalf of the Warren Commission.
mhm,
Um, and basically, their job was to promote the idea that Oswald was the lone shooter, period. No
mhm,
conspiracy. There's no conspiracy that the CIA did it, the military, the mafia, none of that.
mhm,
Oswald, all by himself came up with this, and he's the sole assassin of President Kennedy. That story has been falling apart since
mhm,
the beginning.
mhm,
And so the CIA's job over the years has been any author that writes a book that contradicts that narrative, then they go after them. And that's false. The term conspiracy theory started with the books written about the Kennedy assassination in the mid 1960s. It was a term invented by the CIA. Oh, that author, what he's saying is a conspiracy theory. And what's happened over the years with many of those authors, many of the movie producers, many of those sources of information, that it's not a conspiracy, it's a conspiracy fact that there was all of this conspiratorial activity behind it. So
mhm,
now you're seeing that with the attempted assassination of Trump.
mhm,
Everybody that has any idea of how the deep state operates has been saying now for some time that the deep state wants to keep Trump out of the office because
mhm,
Trump will go after them. Well, at first, they've tried all of these mechanisms. So far, they've all failed.
mhm,
They started with, well, we'll keep Trump off the ballot by saying he violated the 14th Amendment on January 6th. Supreme
mhm,
Court threw that out 9-0. So all the states that tried to ban Trump on their ballots couldn't. So that was eliminated. Then they go after all of these charges that are coming up
mhm.
from the documents case in Florida that's been thrown out now. And
Right.
Trump is suing the government for, I think, $100 million for what they did in that case. Um, so that's just another attempt to silence Trump, keep him from being able to run, keep him from being on a ballot, keep him from out of jail. Then the rest of the lawfare, and almost all of these, with the exception of the crooked liberal judges that have found Trump guilty in New York, for example, the
Mhm,
exception of that, he's winning every one of these, especially winning the appeals,
Mhm.
and that's even affected January 6th people that are convicted because, same thing. They've tried to tie them up to the insurrection and all that. The Supreme Court has said, no, no, no. Much of what you're saying and what you've used in these prosecutions wasn't correct,
Mhm.
wasn't constitutional,
Mhm.
wasn't due process for the defendants. And so some of those cases are now going to be reviewed and thrown out. So
Mhm.
now what's left? They can't keep Trump off the ballot. They can't keep him from being popular, the MAGA movement. They can't, Biden's saying that MAGA is a domestic terrorism organization. People that support MAGA are terrorists.
Mhm.
So now that's not been working. MAGA is very popular. Trump is very popular. So the last resort that many experts are talking about is the only way to be absolutely positive Trump won't be in the White House is Trump won't be alive.
Mhm.
Well, what does that tell you? How many ways can they take him out?
Mhm.
Poison him, shoot him, blow up his airplane? In other countries in the world, the standard way that political opponents are killed is by blowing up their aircraft, make it look like an accident. Oh, they were in a plane crash. Oh, that's too bad. So they could do that. Now you have Trump Force One, Trump's aircraft, on his way to the rally in Montana. Some mechanical problem comes up, so they land. He doesn't make it all the way to Bozeman, lands in Billings, which is about
Right.
apparently 100 miles from Bozeman. And they were talking at the time that his plane landed that he could take another aircraft from Billings to Bozeman. And instead, I think they drove it because he talked about seeing the beautiful countryside by
Mhm.
vehicle. So, now I don't know exactly what the problem was with his aircraft, but it tells you that to protect him, they're going to have to guard his aircraft 24/7, no matter where it's parked. They're going
Right.
to have to vet the mechanics that work on that because they can loosen a bolt or make it so that it's sabotaged
Mhm.
and falls out of the sky with him in it, or put an explosive device in there and blow it up that way. But in a
Exactly.
way, if they do that, it's obvious that they killed him. So, but either way, he's vulnerable from the time he gets out of bed in the morning
Right.
and then leaves whatever residence, if he's staying, at the golf club in New Jersey or Trump Tower or Mar-a-Lago, he's got to leave that residence, get in a motorcade to go to the airport. Well, he's vulnerable leaving the residence. He's vulnerable in the car, in the motorcade. And
Mhm.
then he's vulnerable when he gets to the airport. All of the distance that snipers could be at the airport because he's got to go up the stairs to get in his aircraft.
Right.
Completely vulnerable. Then he's on the aircraft, which
Mhm.
is vulnerable the whole time, the whole flight. Then
Right.
when he lands, whether it's Bozeman or Billings or wherever it might be, then he's got to get off the aircraft and come down the stairs where somebody 1,000 yards away could shoot him.
Mhm.
And snipers are going to be everywhere. And how much protection is the Secret Service giving him? The
Mhm.
minimum, if
Mhm.
that. So
Mhm.
now he gets in the new motorcade at the city or county of the rally, and he's on the highway driving to the rally point. And he's got to get out of the car there, eventually get up on the stage. How much checking are they doing on the surrounding area where snipers could be posted? Well,
Right.
as we saw at the rally in Pennsylvania, not much, not any
Right.
in most cases. So now, every day is going to be a survival mission for him. Now, he does not, in fact, when Homeland Security recommended, well, you should hold your rallies indoors, it's easier to protect them. Well, then they're excluding 20, 30,000 people outside that can't get in.
Mhm.
So it's not as effective. And Trump does not want to appear to be a coward. He
Mhm.
doesn't want, oh, I'm afraid I can't go outside. They might shoot me or they might do something.
Mhm.
So he's basically going to go forward. And
Mhm.
he's already said, I'm not canceling outdoor rallies.
Right. So, Tom, can I put this way? the what CIA did or have done or are still doing now is like to control people, to control this country. So everything, the key word of what FBI do, the purpose is control. And now,
Absolutely. And it's not just the CIA or the FBI, it's almost all the mechanisms of the administration
mhm,
are being used to do that with media assistance by banning people off of social media sites and censoring them and canceling them and all of that. But
mhm,
the CIA or the FBI or the administrative agencies, you name it, uh, they're trying to control you.
right.
And the idea, COVID is a good example. You have the government trying to control you through vaccine mandates, mask mandates, and all of that, lockdowns. You can't go to work. You can't go pray at a church. You can't go to the beach in California, which is wide open airspaces. So all of that's designed that you will obey.
Mhm,
You will comply. We're telling you, you're going to get. That's why Trump in his campaign rallies now is saying, I will not allow schools to impose
right.
vaccine mandates or mask mandates. And
Mhm,
you have how many law enforcement officers across the country that got fired because they wouldn't get the vaccine? So those kind of things have been very, and then later, when it's found that the vaccine can cause death to a
mhm,
lot of people,
right.
oh, they try to hide that. That's a conspiracy theory. Again, back to that stuff. Um, so that continues. Now you have Biden, not just Biden recently get COVID for the how many times, how many vaccines, but I think last week, Dr. Fauci gets COVID and he's
Ye-
been vaccinated and boosted 7 times with the vaccines that say you should be taking them,
mhm,
mandatory.
mhm,
So that's where the problem is. False information enforced by the government,
mhm,
whether it's the FDA, whether it's Homeland Security, you name it, they enforce it. And then, they enforce that with the school system. Your kid can't get in the classroom if they haven't been vaccinated.
right. Right.
Now, I remember growing up being vaccinated for smallpox,
Mhm,
polio, measles. I don't know how, a bunch of vaccines that you had to have before day one going to school.
right.
But they had been vetted to not be harmful. They had been shown to be effective. All of the things. So I
Mhm,
took all of those vaccines. Now, this vaccine comes out, and we were in such a hurry because the government told us we cannot have a pandemic. So we can't go through the normal 2, 3, 5 year process to ensure that that vaccine will not cause harm. Let's just skip all that. And then they not only skip it, but then pass a law saying you can't sue the drug company.
mhm,
So the company Pfizer or whoever's making that vaccine, they're immune.
mhm,
And then I find out later they lied about much of their testing anyway.
mhm,
So how many people died? How many people had the, heart attacks? Young people in their 20s from
right.
taking that vaccine.
Right.
So with various vaccines like that. So the type of false information and then enforcement of that false information by the government is
Mhm.
absolutely unbelievable and horrible.
Right, right. So Trump, President Trump is stand out against the whole thing, the whole deep state, the whole control of people, and MAGA movement as well as like together we know that what's going on here and who wants to control us, and we against that kind of control. So that's why the battle is so severe right now. And we
Right.
have less than 100 days to the election, and which will be the most important election in our lifetime. I truly believe so.
No,
And
that's absolutely true. And the proof of that is that all of these past elections, you have a Democrat, you have a Republican, pretty much who either one gets elected, the policies won't be that different. They'll
Mm.
be pretty close. They'll be a little bit this way or a little bit liberal, a little bit conservative. But never have you had two parties go against each other where one party, the Marxist Party, the Democrats, are pretty much setting about to destroy our form of government,
Right.
our due process, our Constitution. They run against that every day. And the Republicans now have become the party supporting human rights, supporting the Constitution, supporting the Bill of Rights. How important is that? Freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and
Mhm.
then the right to bear arms, freedom to be secure in your home, prohibitions against false arrest
Mhm.
or false searching of your house, that type of thing, or the Eighth Amendment, extreme punishments beyond, like you see in the J6. Somebody was
Mhm.
trespassing at the Capitol and they get 10 years in prison. What? When murderers get set free every day, no problem. So you have this thing where there is no ifs, ands, or maybes. The Democrats are pretty much, their Marxist policy really means an end to many of our freedoms. The freedom of parents to have power over their children, to keep them from being sexually abused or turned into, transsexuals without their permission in school. All of those type of things. That's out of the Marxist playbook. Weaken religion, lock up Catholic Church and say that they're extreme because they do the Mass in Latin, then control the kids in school, take the power away from the parents so you destroy the family. Right out
Mhm.
of Chairman Mao's playbook, destroy the family, destroy the children. So, those kind of things, that's their policies. And they don't make any apology for the fact that they want to do all those things.
Yep. Well, thank you so much, Tom, to telling us the truth, to point out that we are in the most dangerous time of this country and of our life, our children's life, and the generation after. This is the most important election. We have to repeat it again and again and again and keep telling people that the Democrats are not the Democrats you know before. It is a Marxism party, and the purpose of them is to destroy this country. But when they say to you, to people, is we're going to save this country. They are cheating on you. You have to understand that. Have to understand that. They are the enemy of every single American citizen.
Right.
Their power, everything they do is not for our benefit, not for the country's benefit. They are for their power only. And
Absolutely.
their power is about control. Control everybody here, control this country, which we are not like to give them this right and our right. And thank you so much for mentioning about the Bill of Rights. This is how American become American, how we're different to the other countries, and why people are come to the country and they're destroying it. Their Marxism party within our party our country. So it's this is as serious as we can thought.
Right.
And we have so many people, our old friends, our audience there say thank you. Very wonderful sharing. Thank you. And thank you so much, Tom. There are so many thanks to you to get out and tell people the situation we're in right now. We're not sugarcoating
No.
the situation now. We're telling the truth.
Well, thank you all for listening and watching the podcast, and I appreciate it a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tom. We really appreciate your encouragement and your effort to
Okay.
tell the truth. It means a lot to us.
Well, my honor.
Thank you. So
Thank
we'll
you.
see you next week.
Yes.
All right. Thanks again, and thank you so much for our audience. And I'll do the Chinese version later today.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Take care.